what has shifted in you, and what do you think can shift in people to help their viewpoint of money? Because as you said, if they play their cards right over the next 18 months, it could be the biggest, probably the biggest financial gain that they've ever had in their life up until this point. So when you think about money and the psychology of money, how do you think of it? Do you think of it like energy, like some people do? Or like, what is the thought that goes through your mind of how to help people understand money better, but also change their psychology around money with what's coming up?
Well, I grew up dirt poor. We had no money for food. Probably the most significant event in my life, one of them at least, was when I was 11 years old and we had no money and no food, and it was Thanksgiving. So it magnified it. We wouldn't have starved. We had crackers and butter or peanut butter. But there was no, you're not going to have a dinner and everybody else is having that, right? So my parents were fighting, and my fourth father is screaming at my mother, and my mother saying things to him that she'll never be able to take back. And, I could feel him feeling like he's failed his family, which he did fail to provide. He lost his job and didn't handle his finances well. So we literally were completely broke. Mm-hmm. And there was a knock at the door, and I opened the door, because they're fighting. I got my brother and sister in the back room, so they won't hear anything. And there's a guy standing there, like giant guy with 2 giant grocery bags full in his hand. And he had a pot he'd set on the ground that was an uncooked frozen turkey in a pot. And he said, "Is your father here?" I'm like, "Just one moment." So long story short, I go to get my dad, and he said, "You answer it." I said, "No, it's for you, Dad." And I'm like so excited, like this is going to change our Thanksgiving. And my father gets the door, opens the door, sees the man with the groceries, and gets angry. And he said, "We don't accept charity." And he went to slam the door. And the man's shoulder was there, so it kind of bounced off of it and kept open. And made my dad even mad. He goes, Sir. He said, "I'm just the delivery guy. Somebody wants you to have a great Thanksgiving. Everybody has tough times, and they want you to have a great Thanksgiving." My father said, "We don't take charity," and went to push harder. And this time the guy's foot, because he leaned forward, his foot was there, and it bounced off his foot. So now twice he tried to close the door, and my dad's getting more pissed. And then the guy sees me, and I don't know, I must have been ash falling because I was so excited. Now I was like shocked and so sad. What's going on here? And he looked at me, and I'll never forget this. He pointed at me and said, "Sir, don't let your ego make your family suffer." My father's veins on the side of his neck were bulging. He turned flush red. I thought he was going to punch the guy in the face. And my father finally got himself under control. He took the groceries, he slammed him down, slammed the door without saying thank you. And I remember, like, I couldn't understand it. I couldn't understand how we could be so angry when this was a gift. And years later, I figured it out, and it changed my life, is that everything we do is controlled by 3 decisions, including money. And the first one is, what are you going to focus on? That day, my dad had focused on the fact he'd not taken care of his family. Whatever you focus on, that's what you experience. I focused on there's food. What a concept. This is exciting, right? The second decision is the most important one, though. Whatever you focus on, your brain then has to decide what that means. And so my dad, I know what it means because he kept muttering it under his breath angrily for quite some time that night and the next day. And that was that he had not taken care of his family and that he wasn't a man anymore, right? So his life was meaningless. And as a result of that, the third decision we make is what I'm going to do. And my dad left us the next day. It was at the time the worst experience of my life because I loved him so much. He wasn't my natural father, but he's the one I associated to the most. But my life turned out different because I focused on there was food. What really changed my life was the meaning. It's like, this means strangers care. My father said, no one gives a shit about anybody. We lived in this, I thought was a wealthy town. It was a lower middle class town, but we lived on the other side of the tracks. So, they look wealthy compared to us. And my father would say, no one cares about anybody. But here I had evidence some stranger wanted no credit, was providing food. And I decided someday I'm going to do that for other people. So it changed. Our lives were different because we made those 3 decisions differently.